to the Next News Network. Between the headlines, we got a lot of news we're going to be covering today. We'll be starting with our White House rundown, what has happened at the White House in the last 24 hours. Plus, we've got 6 stories that we're going to get to you today, all the way from Barack Obama to flesh-eating flies. We've also got some information on the latest out of Iran, what they found in Ohio, and of course, what President Trump just unveiled in the Oval Office with respect to the reflecting pool and that mysterious vote count in California. Gary Franchi here, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent with the latest White House news from the past 24 hours, streaming in partnership with Trump Daily Post. Tonight's rundown begins with President Trump's major Oval Office move to revive clean American coal, a broader push to rebuild blue-collar opportunity, and a look ahead to tomorrow's Wisconsin trip, where the president is set to highlight tax relief, border security, and heartland gains. President Trump's top headline today was his 3 p.m. Oval Office announcement focused on what the White House described as the comeback of clean, beautiful American coal. The White House messaging tied that announcement to more than $700 million package that includes new coal plants in Alaska and West Virginia, a restart in Maryland, upgrades to existing facilities, and export terminal support using the Defense Production Act. The administration's message was direct: reliable American energy, stronger energy independence, and more jobs for coal country after years of anti-coal policy under the former Biden administration. The same White House push today also underscored a broader blue-collar boom under President Trump. The administration highlighted a goal of more than 1 million new registered apprentices, $229 million in Department of Labor grants to expand those programs, and a first-ever workforce Pell Grant program to move Americans into high-paying skilled careers faster. The White House also pointed to tax relief measures, including no tax on overtime and expanded 529 plan use for trade certifications, presenting skilled trade, manufacturing, and energy work as central to the Trump economic comeback. Looking ahead, the president is scheduled to head to Chippewa County, Wisconsin on Friday to spotlight what the White House is calling first-year America First results. The messaging preview from that trip emphasizes lower inflation, major tax cuts, including no tax on tips, overtime, or Social Security, stronger take-home pay for families, a more secure border, lower fentanyl deaths, and added support for rural health care and farmers. It's a clear heartland message from the president, arguing that promises made are being turned into measurable results. The White House also announced strong support for President Trump's appointment of William Pote as acting director of National Intelligence. The White House said lawmakers from both the House and Senate Republican Conference praise his record of reform, protection of sensitive information, and readiness to lead the intelligence community. The administration's position is that this appointment strengthens national security leadership at a critical time. And according to the daily guidance from the White House, the president's Thursday schedule included some executive time in the morning, an 11 a.m. intelligence briefing, and the 3 p.m. Oval Office announcement on beautiful clean coal, and a 5:30 p.m. policy meeting in the Oval Office. And from the Pool report, today's coal announcement was the only open press covered event on the president's schedule, underscoring just how central that energy message was to the White House agenda. Taken together, the past 24 hours show a White House focused on energy strength, worker opportunity, national security leadership, and direct engagement with the American heartland. And that's the latest from the White House. Now let's turn from the administration's daily action to the other major stories that are shaping the day across the country. We've got lots of news to get to tonight. As I stated, Barack Obama back in the crosshairs. Thankfully, we got some interesting breaking news, and John Bolton riding shotgun on the way to the prison. We've also got that story about this flesh-eating parasite that has now returned since the 1960s. It's got Texas farmers freaking out, but there is a response from the White House, which is rather interesting. We've also got the latest on the Iran negotiations, which everybody is anxious to see resolved. We're going to bring you the latest from that. And also major moves from the Department of Justice today with respect to all of the fraud. Now, we've been tracking the fraud ever since Nick Shirley showed up at the Leering Center with a camera and exposed what was happening in Minnesota. Well, of course, that net has expanded to all 50 states. And one of the biggest fraud scandals that is now in the crosshairs of the White House is happening in Ohio. So that is the next domino to fall. Of course, we want to see even more action in California. We do know that the administration is focusing on the fraud there and all the hospice centers that Dr. Oz has exposed getting shut down. But we're going to be taking a look at what's going on in Ohio tonight as part of that larger push to expand the probes into all of the fraud that they are clawing back for the American taxpayer. Continuing with the news on the beautification of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., President Trump touting some major victories there. We're going to be showing you what happened in the Oval Office today, as well as some of the more beautiful scenes that are coming out of the reflecting pool and other scenes around Washington, D.C. that really showcase American pride is back and America First is winning. And then some remarks from the Oval Office today as well with respect to what happened in California and the vote count there. Everybody is asking some serious questions. Now, we all know what happened in 2020, despite what the media will tell you. But it looks like the election fraud game is still in play. And President Trump is doing whatever he can to make sure that that is stamped out. Of course, you and I both know we need the SAVE Act. We need the Senate to move. We need John Thune to move on the SAVE Act so that we can get secure elections again. Right? What's wrong with secure elections? Absolutely nothing. But on the Democrat side, they need unsecure elections so that they can continue to steal elections because their arguments, their policies actually don't reflect with the American people. They don't resonate. And that's why they keep losing, and that's why they keep needing to steal elections. So we're going to talk about what happened in California. So first, Brian, let's get into our story about Barack Obama, John Bolton. That's the big news today. Tonight, the story is getting bigger, hotter, and much more dangerous for the people who thought that Russiagate would never come back to haunt them, because this is no longer just about old headlines, cable news spin, or another social media post. The Trump administration's accountability push appears to be climbing the chain of command. We're talking about declassified material, intelligence community assessments, DOJ review, and a question that terrifies the old Washington machine. Who authorized what? And if the answer leads where many Americans believe it leads, then the cover-up that was going on for years could be ending right now. So why are the usual suspects suddenly looking so nervous? I'll tell you why this matters, because the real story is not a flashy post claiming Barack Obama could be investigated. The real story is that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has been driving a declassification and referral process focused on how the 2016 and early 2017 intelligence products were created, shaped, and sold to the country. See, that's a massive development. According to remarks now circulating widely, Gabbard said that evidence released points directly to former President Barack Obama leading the manufacturing of the intelligence community assessment. Then, Attorney General Todd Blanche. He said the Justice Department is suddenly studying why the outgoing Obama administration did what it did, why officials like Comey said what they said, and why there was an ongoing effort to target President Trump. That means the focus is moving from events to decisions, from decision to decision makers. And once you enter that territory, this stops being a history debate. It becomes an institutional trust test where America's intelligence tools weaponize to damage Trump and derail the will of the voters. Now, before we go further, I need you to pay attention to this, because accountability matters in Washington. And it matters in your own household too, because if you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. See, Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials. It's all built to overwhelm you so you lock into a plan and never review it again. That is the Medicare confusion industrial complex. And seniors are paying for it without even realizing it. See, Chapter is very simple by design. One call, one advisor, real help. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, and your priorities, then compare plans for you. Some seniors could save as much as $1,100 a year. So don't let the system box you in. Call Chapter at 910-728-4109. You see that number on your screen. And get some clear answers from someone actually working for you and not the bureaucracy or insurance maze. Now let's get back to the accountability story. The corporate media still does not want to touch with any bit of honesty. See, here's the twist that the media class keeps on dodging. This isn't about whether a Russia narrative was false. It's about whether senior officials authorized intelligence activity and document handling under one standard for themselves and another for everybody else. And that's where the John Bolton story suddenly matters, because while Tulsi's declassification effort pushes upwards towards the originators of the Russiagate machine, the new Bolton plea that was entered today pushes sideways into the same argument. Classified information has rules, and the Trump administration is signaling those rules are going to apply across the board. So keep that in mind as we present you the receipts. Attorney General Todd Blanche has confirmed he's moving forward with an investigation into Barack Obama over his plot to overthrow the United States government in 2016. Check this out.
Russia hoax, there was absolutely nothing to it. And so the question that the American people have to ask is, well, then why did they do it? Why did Comey say what he said? Why did the outgoing Obama administration do what they did? And that's what we're studying right now, because it did great damage to this country. It did great damage to President Trump's first term. And we want to understand why that happened, why there continued to be an effort by operatives in the government to go after President Trump while he was in office. And then, of course, over the past several years as well.
So the investigation continues. It says the DOJ is now digging into what drove the Russia hoax and why it was used to cripple Trump. Meanwhile, one of the old guard players taking his own hit, with John Bolton now facing a guilty plea over classified material. This from Trump Daily Post. John Bolton is guilty of illegally retaining classified information. He's staring at up to $2.25 million in fines. Prison time should be next. No one is above the law. This is just breaking news today.
Breaking news, sources revealing that John Bolton is planning to plead guilty to retaining classified information. That plea will likely keep him out of prison. This stems from a charge, 18 of them at the end of last year, of keeping a diary-like material of classified information. So it looks like that case is moving forward and all likelihood is now settled. All right, now.
John Bolton, no friend to President Trump. Mr. Mustache himself is going to be paying a very hefty fine in an effort to keep him out of prison. We'll see how that unfolds, but his legal trouble puts another anti-Trump operator back in the spotlight. Tulsi Gabbard goes further, saying the evidence points straight to Obama in the manufactured intelligence assessment. See, last year, Gabbard referred Barack Obama to the DOJ for criminal investigation. And as I just showed you, the new acting Attorney General, soon to be confirmed official Attorney General, is continuing that investigation. And it's important for context because the DOJ referral is sitting on that desk, and now Todd Blanche has to execute it. Obama ordered the manufacturing of the intelligence community assessment in order to overthrow a duly elected president. Check this out. Let's go back to that moment.
Thank you. And Director Gabbard, this one is for you. Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Ed, go ahead.
Director Gabbard, thank you. So just two questions, but to begin on that. The president yesterday, you've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
The Senate.
So Tulsi Gabbard, that was the big bombshell. And of course, as you know, Tulsi Gabbard is resigning her position, sadly. But we do know that Bill Plute is now going to be filling her shoes, and we hope that he picks up some of these investigations and works directly with Blanche to execute these arrests and investigations. So after Gabbard lays out a direct referral and says Obama led the operation, next question is what they were trying to hide. Devin Nunes makes the case that the Mar-a-Lago raid was tied to the very Russia documents that they did not want exposed.
I'm going to try to get out as much of this information and get it declassified as possible.
So you believe that they raided Mar-a-Lago because they were looking for this? They were looking for the intelligence community assessment, your report on Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 presidential election. That's why they raided Mar-a-Lago?
I believe it had to be one of the things that they were looking for. Because look, that report is pretty damning. If people take the time to read it, it's 45 pages. It's spent. We had a dedicated team that spent nearly 2 years down at the CIA looking through this. It was blocked from getting out. And the reason that report is so important, right? That's, let's just dumb it down. Simply put, we went through every single piece of intelligence that existed. And if anything, it was clear that if Putin was going to do anything, he probably wanted Hillary Clinton to win. But in fact, if you just apply a little common sense to it, the fact was that nobody around the world thought that President Trump was going to win in 2016. Same with Vladimir Putin. He didn't either. And so when you go through that was the intelligence. Every piece of intelligence that existed we went through it. It's in that report. And what do we know? After all this, after all, Trump and Russia and collusion, the two people that didn't collude? Trump and Russia.
America was dragged through a very difficult time. The president, his family, dragged through all of those investigations and the smears. And it's all leading back to one specific person, Barack Obama. And of course, who can forget Hillary Clinton? But if the raid was about burying the truth, that fits a much bigger pattern. Up next, a flashback on unmasking wiretaps and how Obama's team is accused of sabotaging Trump's transition before he even took office. Chicago One Ray calls it treason. Barack Obama made sure there was no peaceful transfer of power. He knew they were wiretapping Trump. Obamagate and Russiagate were way bigger than Watergate. They all belong in Gitmo, he writes. They are all traitors.
Trump will not be president.
Highly critical, biased text messages between senior FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page.
There will be no question about the outcome of this election.
And she got ahead of herself. This utterly stunned this campaign.
Head home. You should get some sleep. We'll have more to say tomorrow.
Our constitutional democracy enshrines the peaceful transfer of power.
The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy. We want to do everything we can to help you succeed, because if you succeed, then the country succeeds.
These declassified documents that were just released.
Officials in the Obama administration were asking for the identities to be unmasked of Americans.
Unmasking of aides and staffers of the incoming president.
The basic charge,
political spying.
To disrupt the peaceful transfer of power.
Unmasking of American citizens it could be a real problem.
Why is it that the unmasking of Flynn somehow ended up in the pages of the Washington Post?
I know nothing about those moves to investigate Michael Flynn.
The vice president said that yesterday, and then the last name on this list is Joe Biden.
The Obama administration was bitter. They wanted to do everything they could to undermine the incoming Trump administration.
Really designed to sabotage and really upend the new administration.
An outgoing president and a vice president and a Washington Post columnist and the FBI setting up an incoming administration. Wow, that's a real conspiracy, and nobody wants to talk about it.
And we're talking about it, and we're not going to stop talking about it until there's true accountability. So it wasn't just dirty politics. It was presented as an effort to block a peaceful transfer of power. Now President Trump says the quiet part out loud, calling Obama the leader of the operation and flatly labeling it treason. There is no going back. President Trump says Obama is guilty of treason.
The leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they look. He's guilty. It's not a question. You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill.
Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton working together in a treasonous act. So Trump's accusation turns the temperature all the way up, but there's also accountability hitting another familiar name from the anti-Trump camp. Continuing with the John Bolton, expected to plead guilty to a felony in a deal with the Trump DOJ. Yes, he has pleaded guilty. Trump DOJ secured a guilty plea from disgraced National Security Advisor Bolton on illegally mishandling national security and classified documents. Now throw him in prison. Bolton will agree to plead guilty. He's accused of taking notes of documents, briefings, emailing them to himself as if it were a diary entry, then printing them out and keeping them after he was fired, according to CNN. He then wrote a memoir, and his home was raided by the feds with secret info found. CNN says it's a felony. Yeah, CNN forced to report.
Is expected to plead guilty over mishandling classified documents. This is according to 3 sources familiar with the matter. I want to go straight to CNN's senior crime and justice correspondent, Caitlin Poland. She has this exclusive reporting. Caitlin, what are you learning?
Pam, the Justice Department securing a guilty plea from John Bolton, the former national security advisor in the first Trump administration. My sources are telling me that he is expected to plead guilty to 1 count of illegally retaining classified information or national security information at his home. Now, this was a substantial case that had been investigated very significantly by first the Biden Justice Department the whole way through the beginning of this term of Donald Trump. This is also a man that Donald Trump very much hates and very much wanted to see prosecuted. Now John Bolton is going to agree to plead guilty and be appearing in court at the end of June. Part of what he is alleged to have done here, and we're still waiting to see exactly what he is going to be admitting to in court, what he's alleged to have done here is taken documents or taken notes of documents or briefings he was being given as national security advisor in the first Trump White House, and then emailing them to himself, almost as if it were a diary entry, and then printing them out, allegedly, and keeping them in his home after he was fired as national security advisor in the first Trump administration. He then wrote a memoir, and his home was searched. When his home was searched last August by the FBI, they found multiple electronics and documents with information labeled secret or confidential or classified, not necessarily the documents themselves, potentially, but he at very least had these diary-like entries. And so his initial case that was charged for 18 counts, he's going to be pleading down to 1 count. We will still be watching to see exactly what the Justice Department asks for in court, whether he should be spending time in prison. That is a possibility. This would be a felony charge for John Bolton. But this is a significant case that the Justice Department has made a deal on to secure a guilty plea of a significant political foe.
Must really burn up the folks over there in the CNN production room that their favorite anti-Trump voice is now pleading guilty. So after the CNN report on Bolton's expected felony plea, the story gets more direct. Trump himself weighing in, calling Bolton a bad guy, as reports say he will pay millions over mishandling classified documents.
Bolton was just indicted by a grand jury in Maryland. Do you have a reaction to that?
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes.
The case against him?
That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes. Will I what?
Have you reviewed the case against him?
No, I haven't. But I just think he's a bad person.
President Trump, one of his enemies going down. So what does it all really mean? It means that we may be watching phase 4 of the Russiagate reckoning. Phase 1 was the argument over whether the Russia story was justified. Phase 2 was whether the intelligence assessments were accurate. Phase 3 became who made the calls. Now becomes phase 4. Will anybody actually be held accountable? President Trump's already made clear where he stands, saying Obama was the leader of the operation, calling it treason. Tulsi Gabbard's document releases and referrals suggest a chain of authorization is now the central question, and the Bolton guilty plea on classified retention reinforces the same core principle. No more special exceptions for the elites. If you directed it, approved it, shaped it, or hid it, the spotlight is moving in your direction, and you may be getting a knock on the door from the FBI. So, to the American people, yes, we were told for years to sit down, shut up, accept the lie, accept the Russia hoax, accept the leaks, accept the unmasking, accept the raid politics, accept that President Trump was somehow the villain while the permanent Washington class wrapped itself in the language of national security. But now the Trump administration is doing what should have been done a long time ago. Declassify, investigate, and follow the chain of command wherever it leads. And that is how trust is rebuilt. Not by protecting powerful Democrats, not by burying intelligence abuse behind bureaucratic jargon, by exposing it, by prosecuting misconduct where the facts support it, by showing the country that the same rules apply to everyone, including insiders. And if you believe the American people deserve the truth, the full truth about who authorized the Russiagate operation, share this report, subscribe to our channel, drop a comment, yes or no. Should every official tied to this chain of decisions face the full investigation? Let's have a conversation. And let's get you connected when the algorithm decides that you don't deserve to know when the truth is told. When the algorithm decides to bury the next news network under mountains of CNN and MSNBC garbage, I will not let you down. I have set this number up just for you. It's on your screen, 844-840-4963. Simply text the words raw feed to it, and you will not miss the news that you deserve. And celebrate America 250 with the Next News Network. We got some new gear. You can check it out in the merch shelf below this video. I want to celebrate with you. Are you ready? All right, we are all waiting for those perp walks, and it looks like John Bolton will be the first guilty plea. Of course, we also know that James Comey facing his own reckoning. We're all paying very close attention to that timeline. I believe in just a few weeks we'll have some more information when that trial proceeds. But with the new Director of National Intelligence, with the new Attorney General, we can only hope and pray that these DOJ referrals that were handed up to the DOJ from the DNI office that specifically target Barack Obama actually get investigated. And the accountability that we all know needs to happen occurs. Okay, so we got more news. Some bizarre news, in fact. We do need to talk about what the administration is doing about this new flesh-eating fly. I know that when you're out at your picnics in the summer heat and you're enjoying the outdoors, we get those pesky flies. They always love to come around our picnics, don't they? Well, what's happening in Texas has got some very serious situations unfolding. In fact, I just found out that we have some news that it has now been confirmed. There's a massive quarantine underway. That's rather concerning. Secretary Brooke Rollins, though, is on the case, so we're going to get to the details on that. We've been tracking all day. So let's go ahead and investigate, shall we? A flesh-eating parasite that America thought it defeated decades ago has just shown up again in Texas. And this is not some cable news panic story about person-to-person spread. This is worse in a different way. The New World screwworm, it attacks livestock through open wounds, burrowing into living tissue. And if ranchers miss it, the animal can die. One infected calf near the border may sound isolated. Well, it's not. The real question tonight is whether the United States can stop this thing before it reestablishes itself and turns into a devastating blow to ranchers, cattle supply chains, and food security across the country. And it's curious that we know Bill Gates has been trying to reduce America's consumption on red meat. We also know that his organizations have been behind pushing ticks across this country so that Americans can catch alpha-gal syndrome and reduce their desire to eat red meat. Are they all connected? These are questions we certainly need answers to, but here's why this matters far beyond one calf. You see, the screwworm, it was eradicated from the U.S. back in 1966 using a smart and relentless campaign that released sterilized male flies into the wild until the population collapsed. For decades, that kept American ranchers protected, but now the parasite has been moving north through Mexico, and the first confirmed case has ranchers on alert for rapidly growing, foul-smelling wounds and white egg masses in livestock. The danger here is not that Americans are about to face a human outbreak. Human outbreak cases are, in fact, rare. The danger is agricultural. These flies target warm-blooded animals, especially cattle, and once the larvae hatch, they feed on the living flesh. That means lost animals, rising costs, disrupted production, and more pressure on food prices. This is border biosecurity in real time, and unlike the neglect we saw during the previous administration, the Trump administration is moving before the worst-case scenario arrives. And speaking of getting ahead of a threat before anyone else wakes up, that brings me to tonight's sponsored message. See, this report is sponsored by Noble Gold Investments. And if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Well, of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? See, the people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic changes in history. And today, a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver because silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the manufacturing economy. And demand is rising fast. So go to nextnewsgold.com right now and learn how you could also qualify for a 1/10 ounce gold coin while offers last. Now back to a threat that the Trump team is trying to crush before it tears into the heart of American agriculture. See, what makes this story so important is that the parasite itself is only half the headline. The other half is the response. See, most people hear that the government is releasing millions of flies and think it sounds absurd. Well, it's not. It's targeted eradication. Female screwworm flies usually mate only once, so if they mate with sterile males, the infestation burns out. That means the fight is not just about treating infected animals, it's about stopping an economic threat before it spreads across ranch country. And the scale of the response tells you that Washington knows exactly what is at stake. Scott Pressler posting about the flesh-eating parasite found in South Texas calf, the New World screwworm, eradicated since 1966. This parasitic fly lays eggs in the fresh wounds of warm-blooded animals. They feed on the host's flesh, which, if left untreated, can cause the animal to die. It's not contagious. It does threaten the cattle industry. So cattle ranchers should be on the lookout for rapidly growing foul-smelling wounds that have white egg masses. Take a look.
The United States has confirmed the case of New World screwworm in Texas cattle, raising alarm for the country's livestock industry. The parasitic fly lays eggs in open wounds, its larvae burrowing into living tissue, causing severe damage and, if untreated, death. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says the infestation was found in a calf near the U.S.-Mexico border. It marks the first confirmed case in Texas since 1966, and a major concern for ranchers as the pest has steadily moved north through Mexico. Authorities are moving quickly, imposing quarantines, increasing surveillance, and treating livestock in affected areas. Officials are also expanding outreach and distributing treatments to stop the spread. Screwworms most often enter through wounds and can affect livestock, wildlife, pets, and in rare cases, people. The USDA says sterile flies are being released to suppress the population. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rowland says the situation is being contained and insists the U.S. food supply remains safe. Still, the outbreak poses a significant economic risk, with Texas livestock losses potentially reaching billions of dollars if screwworm spread.
So that's the basics. The flesh-eating parasite back in Texas, a calf infected, USDA moving with quarantines and sterile flies. Now CBS lays out how this thing burrows into living tissue and why ranchers are treating it like a real border zone threat.
Discovery of the New World screwworm fly back in the U.S. The name kind of gives away why this fly is a problem. The fly finds an open wound or even a scratch on an animal or a person, and that's where it lays its eggs. The fly then develops by feeding off of that host. It can be incredibly painful for animals, fatal in some cases. We've been holding off the fly for years from Panama. Scientists developed a way in the 60s to breed sterile screwworm flies. Then when they would drop them out of airplanes by the millions, the flies out in the wild were unable to reproduce. Using that strategy, they pushed this fly south, out of the United States, out of Mexico, all the way down through Central America, using that exact same strategy. During the pandemic, there were some breakdowns in the process and in surveillance. There was additional movement of people and animals to the north. The fly, screwworms, started to spread again. Once that became evident, the U.S. started devoting more resources to trying to stop it. They started to prepare a location in Mexico to breed more sterile flies. They prepared an old base in the South U.S. to be able to receive sterile flies and drop them again. And right now the work is ongoing to try to breed sterile flies again in the U.S. That in itself is significant. Researchers have told me that the fly is considered to be so dangerous, they can't even get their hands on live samples. They've had to go south to Panama to study them. The big concern here is if these flies impact the ability of ranchers to have calves. If they have to limit the seasons because they can't have calves in the warm season when the fly is active, that starts to impact how much they're able to rebuild their herds. It impacts the ability of wildlife to survive. And yes, in some cases, it could impact pets and people. There's been surveillance ongoing for months and months and months. State and federal agencies have been training on where to watch for the fly, how to trap it, how to recognize it. They have been developing therapeutics and ointments and treatments in the hope that once it was here, they could get on it right away. But now it is here. It's well across the border. It's about 100 miles southwest of San Antonio. And the battle is now not just something that scientists are expecting to happen. It is here.
Interesting, they would be dropping sterile flies from airplanes, as we've heard the stories of Bill Gates funding ticks, and these ticks landing in boxes all across America. CBS showing the dangers and the years of breakdowns and that let the menace creep north. Next, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins explains what the Trump team is doing right now, fast-tracking a massive Texas sterile fly facility and sending emergency veterinary stockpiles to South Texas. Secretary Rollins testifying that we have immediate approval.
To take just a moment on the New World screwworm. So it is a vexing challenge that we thought we had beaten in the 1960s and 1970s. As I mentioned, unfortunately, that was wrong as the screwworm began to make its way back towards us in 2021. The way we defeated it before, you need about 400 million sterile flies per week to actually mate with the bad flies, sterilize them, and then, of course, the way that the flesh is in wounds becomes open to these screwworms, which are actually flies. The flies land in the wound, they lay their eggs. The larva then is what actually eats the flesh. If you catch it right away, you can save the animal and put them back into the supply system after a number of days. If you don't catch it right away, then that's where the problem ensues. Back when we did beat it, again, as I mentioned, it's about 400 million sterile flies a week, and that was in the 1960s, 1970s. Because over years we as a country, we as a hemisphere, had taken our eye off the ball, thinking it was eradicated. We got down to only 100 million sterile flies in production a week in a facility in Panama. So that is what we, the country, not me or USDA, but the country really had relied on to keep it out of Central America and Mexico, et cetera. So here we are. When we got in last year, I was presented with the information. It's starting to move its way up. I went to the president and I said, this is going to be a massive problem because we need 400 million to 500 million flies per week to beat this back. We only have one facility in our entire hemisphere, and it's only producing 100 million flies per week. So got immediate approval to begin permitting and construction on what will be the largest facility in the world on this, and that is being built right now in Mission, Texas. So instead of a couple years of permitting, our Army Corps of Engineers, our Secretary of the War, put it at the top of the list, got it fast-tracked, and we broke ground about 3 or 4 months ago. That facility will come online next year. When it does, it'll produce about 300 million flies per week, in addition to the 100 million from Panama, and then we outfitted an additional Mexican facility in Matapa for another $100 million. So we will get back to the point where we're able to push it back and eradicate it, but until that point, which is likely sometime next year, our effort in trapping, surveillance, we had FDA fast-track a lot of treatment. We've got a national veterinary supply stockpile that was loaded onto a plane this morning, is headed to South Texas right now. I've already done a lot of press on this, so making sure that we're over-communicating, especially to our producers, is paramount. Of course, for Arizona, New Mexico, and California, it's also a challenge, but the screwworm continues to be between 500 and 800 miles away from those borders. It's really South Texas where we're really combating this every day. The point of that, Mr. Chairman, is that we are on it. We've invested almost $1 billion since we came in the door last year to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
So the Trump administration on the case, but here's the part that should get every American's attention. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins says the Trump administration has already fast-tracked construction of what will become the largest sterile fly production facility in the world, right in Texas. The Army Corps pushed it to the top of the list. Ground was broken months ago. When it comes online next year, it's expected to produce about 300 million flies a week on top of existing output from Panama and support from an additional Mexican facility. At the same time, the FDA fast-tracking treatments and a national veterinary stockpile loaded onto a plane and sent to South Texas. And that is what competent government looks like. Not denial, not delay, action. Fast, focused, America First action aimed at eradication and not surrender. So let's be very clear about what the real story is. Yes, the screwworm is disgusting. Yes, it's dangerous. But the biggest headline is that America is in a race to stop a biological threat to ranching, cattle production, agriculture, trade, and food stability before it digs in. And that's why this matters. And for once, the federal government is not waiting around for disaster to spread before acting. The Trump administration is treating this like a national security challenge that it is, a biosecurity challenge. And that is exactly what Americans should demand. Protect the border, protect the food safety, protect food supply, protect the ranchers who feed this country. If this parasite is crushed now, it'll happen because decisive action happened early. If not, the cost gets a lot higher. So share this report, leave a comment, and subscribe to the Next News Network so more Americans understand what's really happening. And a simple yes or no. Do you trust the Trump administration to eliminate the screwworm before it spreads nationwide? Let's have a conversation, and let's get you connected with me directly. Let's cut out the middleman, shall we? Yes, I know you're frustrated. I'm frustrated when those notifications never arrive. You can't seem to find our videos when the algorithm decides to present you CNN and MSNBC instead of the truth. Well, that's why we set up this number. 844-840-4963. You see it on your screen right there. Thousands of patriots, thousands and thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to that number. I want you to be the next one to get on the insiders list, so you never miss the important news that you are entitled to from us. And we're celebrating America 250. Are you? I hope you will. I hope you'll join us too. So check out the Next News merch shelf below this video, or check the link and pick out something you like, and let's celebrate America 250 together. So, yeah, that was not on my bingo card today. Flesh-eating flies invading America. Well, that's what we're dealing with now. And speaking of invading, we need to talk about what's going on in Iran. President Trump is destroying any Iranian doubts with one warning on our troops. That warning is now about to be exposed. And later in the show, we're going to be talking about what they found in Ohio and what the Trump administration is doing and their nationwide push to crush the fraud that was initially exposed by Nick Shirley in Minnesota. Yes, it's a lot worse than we ever expected. Yeah, Minnesota just became the crack in the dam, if you will. And we're going to also look ahead to what President Trump presented in the Oval Office today with respect to the reflecting pool and the ongoing efforts to celebrate America's 250th anniversary, 250 years of this great republic. And I'm just excited for it. I love this country, always have, and to know that you and I get to celebrate America 250 together just warms my heart. And of course, we got to talk about what's going on in California, as well as what President Trump revealed in the Oval Office just a few hours ago. Tonight, the Iran story changed in a way the corporate press still does not fully understand. This is no longer just about whether President Trump can end a war. It's about whether he can lock in peace before one reckless proxy, one drone, one missile, or one dead American blows the whole thing wide open again. And then came the moment that cut through all the noise. A reporter asked President Trump what would happen if Iran or its terror network killed U.S. troops. Well, Trump didn't hedge. He didn't mumble. He drew a line. And that one answer tells you exactly where this crisis stands right now. And here's the real story tonight. See, the Trump administration appears to believe it already has the leverage. Iran has been weakened, its options narrowed, and the pressure campaign is producing movement. That means the mission has shifted from breaking the regime's resistance to freezing the battlefield long enough to finish the deal from strength. That's a huge difference. 2 weeks ago, the biggest fear was a larger regional war. Today, the biggest danger is a single tactical incident, one militia attack, one rocket, one American casualty. And that is why Trump's warning, it matters so much. He's signaling peace is preferred, but deterrence is still fully loaded. At the same time, the same Democrats who spent years empowering weakness under the former Biden administration are now joined by a handful of Republican grandstanders trying to limit Trump's flexibility in the middle of active negotiations. That is not oversight. That is a gift to Tehran, a gift to every proxy watching, and a direct hit on American leverage when strength matters most. And while we're talking about strength, recovery, and giving the body the tools it needs to fight back, let me tell you about something that truly caught my attention. You see, you've probably seen the clips of Joe Rogan with Mel Gibson talking about serious health struggles and dramatic turnarounds. Rogan mentions light-based therapies working at the cellular level, and Gibson said it plainly, the stuff works. See, that hit home for me. In my own family, my wife dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety for too long. And then I started looking into red light therapy and the work that Jonathan Otto has highlighted right here on this channel. And what stood out is how simple and practical that it is. If you want to learn more, go to myredlight.com. It's linked below, and see the options for yourself, because these devices are designed to support recovery, wellness, and daily performance in a way that fits real life. Use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. That's myredlight.com. Now back to the story, because what President Trump said next should put every ally, adversary, and armchair saboteur on notice, because the media will obsess over the House vote, because that's easier than admitting what is actually happening. President Trump's trying to preserve a position of dominance while the peace framework is still fragile. He also made something else clear. This is not another Obama-style surrender package, and it's absolutely not a repeat of the failed appeasement mindset from the previous era. Trump said it himself, if there is a deal, it will be the exact opposite of Obama's road to an Iranian bomb. And that changes how every one of these tweets and clips should be read. A reporter asked the question in the Oval, you'd only restart the conflict in Iran if they killed U.S. troops?
Iran. I wanted to ask you about this report that you would only restart the conflict with Iran if they killed U.S. troops. Is that your red line for ending the ceasefire?
If they killed?
U.S. troops.
What does that mean?
That you would restart the war with Iran if they killed U.S. troops.
Well, it would be a good reason. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, if they killed U.S. troops, I think I would do that very quickly. Yeah, that's a very interesting question.
A very interesting question. He made the red line clear. If Iran kills U.S. troops, the response comes fast. But on Capitol Hill, the usual sabotage kicks in, with the House moving to tie his hands on any future action, Congress voting to end the Iran war. 4 Republicans betrayed the party.
Fox News alert, the House just passed a war powers resolution to end the war in Iran. The final vote, 215-208, with 4 Republicans breaking rank, including Thomas Massie, who just lost his re-election bid. The vote would mean the president would have to seek out congressional approval for any future military action. The bill now is going to be voted on in the Senate, so we'll see what happens there. Even if it does pass out of the Senate, Trump will just veto it, so it's more symbolic.
It is more symbolic. The House vote may be symbolic, but betrayal was real. Now, Trump firing back directly, blasting the 4 bad Republicans and every Democrat who lined up against him. Trump slamming the 4 bad Republicans and all the Democrats who voted for the anti-Trump war powers resolution. Posting on Truth Social. Here's the moment.
On this vote, the yeas are 215 and the nays are 208. The concurrent resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Again, it's more symbolic than anything because it still has to go to the Senate and to the president's desk. But as you can see there, they're all over there cheering for Iran. Isn't that just disgusting? Here is the actual post President Trump made on Truth Social. Yesterday, in a meaningless vote, the House voted 4 bad Republicans and all the Democrats to limit my war powers right in the middle of my final negotiations to end the war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Who would do such an unpatriotic thing? They know where the negotiations stand. The Democrats are fueled by Trump derangement syndrome. They would rather have our country fail than give me another of many victories. The 4 Republicans, that's a whole other story. They're grandstanders. They should be ashamed of themselves. MAGA, President Trump posting that. So the message simple: stop undercutting the commander-in-chief in the middle of negotiations. And while the swamp plays games in Washington, One American News has GOP lawmakers spelling out why Iran still can't be trusted for a second. While President Trump continues working towards a peaceful resolution, GOP lawmakers recall the Iranian regime has spent decades sponsoring instability, threatening U.S. interests, and exploiting negotiations just to buy time.
President Trump continues working toward a peaceful resolution with Iran. GOP lawmakers recall that the Iranian regime has spent decades sponsoring instability, threatening U.S. interests, and exploiting negotiations to buy time. Here's One America's John Heinz with more from Capitol Hill.
What's going on with Iran now as your, based on your observation, sir?
Iran is being Iran. Making untrustworthy statements, trying to indicate their strength over the United States, just doing what Iran has done for years, extend, and what they're doing behind the scenes is our concern. And I'm confident that our president understands that. Who he's negotiating with is hard to tell from the outside, but I'm looking forward to it being over soon.
Is it time to renew kinetic activity, do you suppose?
If I were calling the shots with what I know, I'd bomb the living daylights out of them right now and say that's it. But I'm not the president. I don't have all that background information. So right now I'll trust what he's doing.
There's only one thing you do with this IRGC, and that's to eliminate them. And I think this is what I hope the president winds up doing. You can't trust them. There were some attacks on our ship and shipping yesterday and the day before, I think it was. And so let's hope that we can end this regime, get some freedom and liberty for these folks in Iran. 47 years is way too long. We've been putting up with them. They've killed tens of thousands of their own people, as I said. Also, probably well over 1,000 Americans who've died at their hands, starting back in 1983 with the Marine barracks bombing in Lebanon.
Well, let me tell you that, we're still in the ceasefire, but that doesn't always pan out with Iran. We've been involved with them 47 years. I myself joined the Marine Corps 3 days after the Iran hostage situation, so I've watched this a lot. Iran can't be trusted. I know the president is working very hard, and I appreciate his peace efforts. I don't believe that they can be trusted, and I believe that by the time it's said and done, the only way to go back is to drive them completely out.
If they're going to play.
Lawmakers backing Trump's peace push, but they're warning Iran has spent decades stalling and deceiving. Now Trump takes a step further, torching Obama's deal involving again Iran will never get a nuclear weapon. This just a few hours ago in the Oval Office.
Iran have a nuclear weapon, and everybody agrees to that, no matter, almost everybody. But wait a minute. Our gasoline prices are lower than they were with Biden without that. And he would have let them have, in fact, he inspired them to have, frankly, a nuclear weapon, him and Obama. Obama picked the wrong country, you know that. And the Obama deal, I terminated that, or they would have had a nuclear weapon. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. Our deal, if we make that deal, and it's going well, but who knows? If we make that deal, it's the exact opposite. They will never have a nuclear weapon.
It sounds like you're in it for as long as it takes.
I'm not going to let them have a nuclear weapon, no. With Obama, it was a road, you know that, it was a road to a nuclear weapon. That was a short-term agreement, and at the end of which they would have a nuclear weapon. So they would have had it 4 years ago. Then we attacked with this beautiful plane right here, the B-2 bomber.
So Trump drawing contrast with Obama in black and white, his deal ends the nuclear threat, not delays. Meanwhile, ceasefire drama widens with a fresh report claiming Israel and Lebanon have agreed to a new truce. Iran war live updates. Israel and Lebanon agreed to a new ceasefire. So even with talk of new ceasefire, nothing in the region stays settled for long. Fox picks up the next piece, reporting Hezbollah already rejecting the proposal and threatening the broader Trump push for a peace deal. Live, Hezbollah rejecting the proposed Lebanon-Israel ceasefire could impact broader negotiations involving the United States and Iran, as well as the Middle East as a whole. The move comes as Trump calls out House lawmakers who voted to limit his war powers.
Breaking today, Iran's terror proxy Hezbollah rejecting a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon that could be key to a Trump-brokered peace deal with Tehran. Our senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy is on the North Lawn with the latest. Peter, a lot of people might be shaking their heads to say, why does a designated foreign terror organization even have a seat at the table?
Yes, exactly, John. And when President Trump looks at that ceasefire that is very fragile and also the ceasefire with Iran, he's trying to reframe ceasefire, basically saying that even though missiles and bombs are still flying out of Iran, it's all relative.
How do you define ceasefire?
Pretty much the way it is. It's a different part of the world. You know, I'd say in that part of the world, ceasefire is when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
President Trump is big mad at the House of Representatives, posting yesterday in a meaningless vote. The House voted 4 bad Republicans and all of the Democrats to limit my war powers right in the middle of my final negotiations to end the war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Who would do such an unpatriotic thing? They know where the negotiations stand. That vote is symbolic for now, so the president is moving forward with plans to wear the Iranians down with diplomacy or with war fighting until they fork over enriched uranium, something President Trump claims they agreed to until they didn't.
It depends on what day you're talking about. They did agree, and then sometimes they agree. The only ones, us and probably China, are the only 2 countries that have the equipment where you can do that. So, yeah, I want to get it. We have, at different times, had different, I mean, they've changed their mind a couple of times.
And about an hour and 45 minutes from right now, President Trump is going to host an event about clean coal, but we do expect some Q&A because we typically get it from him.
So that's what we got for you right now. So what does it all really mean? It means the White House is operating like the fighting phase has achieved its purpose and the enforcement phase has begun. Trump is saying, we want peace. We're working towards peace, but do not mistake restraint for weakness. He made that explicit when asked about U.S. troops. If they were killed, he would move very quickly. That is deterrence in plain English, and that is also why the War Powers Resolution was so badly timed. Right in the middle of delicate negotiations, Congress signaled division when the commander-in-chief needed maximum room to maneuver. Trump called out the 4 bad Republicans and the Democrats for exactly what they were doing, undercutting leverage, while America's finally negotiating from strength instead of apology. So the bottom line is simple. President Trump's doing what weak leaders never could. He's holding open the door to peace while keeping America's enemies terrified of crossing the line. That is how you prevent a wider war. Not with lectures, not with endless committees, not with Democrats pretending to care about restraint after years of letting Iran grow bolder. You do it with power, clarity, and consequences. Iran, they now know the deal on the table is not Obama's failed roadmap to a nuclear weapon. Hezbollah now knows that one sabotage move could trigger a fierce response. And Congress should know this too. When America's close to locking in a better outcome, the last thing patriots should do is tie the president's hands. If you agree that Trump is negotiating from strength and keeping peace through deterrence, share this report, subscribe, leave a comment below. Yes or no, let's have a conversation. Should President Trump have full authority to respond instantly if Iran or its proxies harm U.S. troops? Let's have a conversation. And let's continue the conversation when you text the 2 words on the screen, raw feed, to 844-840-4963. Thousands and thousands of patriots are already bypassing the suppressive algorithm. They're getting the notifications that YouTube, that you signed up for, that never arrive. Why? Because they're getting it from me directly. We're cutting out the middleman, going direct to you. Right from me to your phone. One text message every night will keep you in the loop because I want to make sure you get the news that you deserve. And I want you also to celebrate America 250. Celebrate it with us. Check out the merch shelf below this video or the link, and let's celebrate America 250 together. So, that is the latest on the Iran front that continues to percolate as President Trump is working just around the clock, staying in Washington, trying to get this thing locked in. And hopefully we can, and hopefully there will not be any American troops harmed. Because if that happens, well, you know President Trump, you just saw it, the gloves will be off. So, speaking of the gloves coming off, they are coming off all across the United States as the administration amplifies its war on fraud. There is, I think the estimate's like $1 trillion in fraud. Think about how much fraud is happening, how much the U.S. Treasury is being looted, your taxpayer money being looted. Well, President Trump, Dr. Oz, and so many others in the administration, they're not holding back any longer. So we've got to tell you what they just found in Ohio that changes the game. If you thought this was just another fraud bust, think again. What happened in Ohio is bigger than handcuffs, bigger than seized luxury cars, and bigger than the more than $50 million already tied to these cases. The Trump administration is sending a message that should terrify every parasite feeding off taxpayers, Medicaid patients, and even children. The free ride is over. This is not just about catching crooks after the money disappears. It looks a lot more like the opening move in a nationwide anti-fraud machine. And once you see the pieces they rolled out today, one question becomes impossible to ignore. I'm going to tell you why this matters to every single American who's watching right now. According to the Attorney General Todd Blanche, currently acting, soon to be full-fledged, Ohio alone is seeing charges against 14 defendants connected to fraud schemes targeting more than $50 million in taxpayer money. Medicare fraud, pandemic relief fraud, romance fraud, Medicaid fraud. And Blanche made the most important point of the day when he said these numbers are just the tip of the iceberg. That means what has been uncovered may be tiny compared to what is still buried inside bloated government systems. FBI Director Kash Patel drove the outrage home, saying tens of millions intended for kids were allegedly stolen by people in government and the private sector who thought they could fleece Americans, the Treasury, and our children. Well, under President Trump, they got caught, and Ohio's Attorney General said the quiet part out loud. In 16 years of Medicaid investigations, he's never seen this level of federal interest and support from any administration. Not Obama, not when Biden was president. Trump and J.D. Vance are treating fraud like an attack on the country itself. And while we're talking about waste and theft and bureaucratic games, this next part hits home for millions of families. Now pay attention to this, because if you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. See, Medicare is confusing by design, unless, of course, you're one of those fraudsters. Now, you've seen the mailers, the robocalls, all the fine print, the commercials. See, it's all built to keep you overwhelmed, so you pick a plan and never look at it again. And that's the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it without even realizing it. Chapter is simple by design, just one call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, and your needs to help you compare plans clearly. And check this out, some seniors, they could save as much as $1,100 a year. If you want real help cutting through the nonsense, call Chapter at 910-728-4109 and get advice that actually puts you first. Now back to the Ohio crackdown, because what they announced next is where the story goes from big to historic. See, the arrests, they're the headline, but they're not the real bombshell. The real bombshell is what came after them. Dr. Oz and CMS announced 49 Ohio healthcare home providers are being suspended as high risk to Medicaid. Ohio also moved towards a 6-month moratorium on new home health care services and hospices. Then came the phrase that everybody should be focusing on: a state-specific Medicaid fraud war room. See, that's not a press conference gimmick. That is infrastructure. That's a system being redesigned in real time, and it sets up exactly what you're about to see in these receipts. FBI Rapid Response Director Kash Patel. Check this out.
Operation Playground Therapy is what the FBI is here to talk about today. As the Attorney General highlighted, literally tens of millions of dollars that was supposed to go to kids was stolen, allegedly, by individuals who worked in government and the private sector and thought they could fleece Americans and our treasure, our children, of the hard-earned dollars, the taxpayer dollars that we provide to support them in their time of need. Well, they got caught. And not only did they get caught, so many others got caught. Just take a look at some of the vehicles that are here as part of their ill-gotten gains and proceeds. They didn't just take the money, they paraded it around the country. And thanks to this team here, you are seeing what hard work, dedication to the rule of law, and true unified effort across all fronts when no one wants the credit and everyone wants to just do the work. These are the results that we're here to talk about today.
Results. And that is exactly what this administration is giving America. He laid it out. The money meant for kids was looted. People flashing the cash got caught. Now acting Attorney General Todd Blanche puts the numbers on it. 14 defendants, more than $50 million in fraud charges out of Ohio.
In total, between our state and federal partners, today we're announcing charges that were either unsealed today or over the past week against 14 defendants allegedly involved in fraud schemes targeting over $50 million here in Ohio. And again, these numbers are staggering, but just the tip of the iceberg, both here in Ohio and nationwide. Sadly, Ohio is facing some of the most significant fraud schemes in the country. Medicare fraud, pandemic relief fraud, even an international romance fraud scheme that I think you'll hear about shortly. And to meet this challenge, to meet this crisis, our response has been and will continue to be aggressive, comprehensive, and we will not stop until we fix this problem.
So Blanche says the Ohio bust is only the tip of the iceberg, with fraud schemes hitting taxpayers from every angle. Next, Ohio's Attorney General says one thing changed the game: real backup from President Trump, not the usual swamp indifference.
I've been engaged in this fight since I was the elected Auditor of State back in 2011. Through my 8 years as Auditor of State and almost 8 years now as Attorney General, I have been doing Medicaid investigations, prosecutions. I have never had the level of interest and support from the federal government under any administration that you're witnessing here today. It's been a sometimes lonely fight against fraud, but it's no longer a lonely fight. And what's the difference? President Trump, Vice President Vance, and this team that you see arrayed here today, these senior federal officials who could be anywhere else, who have serious duties, are saying, this is the most important thing. I'm going to be here. We're putting everything on the field. I'm grateful for your commitment, and I look forward to the continued partnership as we work together for the people of this state.
So the Ohio AG making the contrast clear. After years of a lonely fight, Trump stepped in, and now the cavalry has arrived. Dr. Oz gets into the crackdown, including 49 high-risk home health providers suspended, and a new Medicaid fraud war room.
So today we have three major announcements from the healthcare part of this fraud endeavor. The first is that the state of Ohio, and I want to applaud the Medicaid office here, they will be announcing at 1 o'clock, and please pay attention to that important announcement, that they are suspending 49 home healthcare providers who have been identified as high risk to the Medicaid program. These people have billed millions of dollars to take advantage of our most vulnerable, and if you're willing to steal from folks who are down and having a difficult time, you'll not just steal their money, you'll steal their health, you'll steal their lives. And we're seeing that. No more champagne on private jets for these people, no more new cars, no more luxury endeavors and vacations. It's done. We're coming after you wherever you are. And as Attorney General Blanche highlighted, we are earnest and serious in this endeavor. We will not be daunted. Ohio Governor DeWine also sought a 6-month moratorium for all new home health care and hospice in the state of Ohio. We granted that within a day. And we hope that will help at least slow the bleeding, using a surgical metaphor, so we can get a bandage on the wound, maybe put a couple stitches in, and take out some of the folks who have been stabbing the patient of Medicaid. Second big announcement, in order to solidify collaboration, CMS, Medicare, Medicaid, and Ohio are going to launch a state-specific Medicaid fraud room. It's going to copy the Medicaid fraud room created at the federal level by the task force. The findings surfaced through this state partnership, we believe, will free us to be able to directly collaborate at a national level, getting all states to understand what the problems are within their areas and accelerating our ability to take out high-risk providers. We'll identify them and we'll enforce actions around them. The applied behavioral analysis process, it's called ABA therapy for autism, has been scandalously abused. This is, again, taking advantage of children with autism, or getting their parents to lie about whether the child has autism, or weakening the system so the kids who actually need the services can't get them anymore. There are 9 providers that were paid more than $1 million to do this last year, these ABA services. We're going to go after them. We're going to deny some of the issues. In fact, 2 of these people were denied access to Medicare already. They should never have been in the Medicaid program. The top provider earned over $3 million. That's twice the closest competitor. And remember, the average provider of autism services gets paid around $200,000. So to have someone pay over $3 million is shocking. And the war room that's created with Ohio will be opening investigations on 2 home health care providers. And this war room is going to yield huge benefits. And finally, we want to speak a little bit about the fact that we have the need to audit states all over the country to help states understand where they are in comparison to all the other states. We don't have a national effort that allows states to at least get a best practices idea from surrounding areas. So we have now, and I can announce today, asked the state of Indiana to work with Oracle Health to provide that exact set of information. So all the states now will be armed with information, for example, on high-risk providers. And the ABA therapy autism, as I mentioned before, we've asked all 50 states to revalidate these providers and other high-risk categories. Every single state has agreed. By this Friday, they're obliged to provide us with a specific plan. But if you're involved in some high-risk endeavor, these are endeavors that are unlicensed individuals, often in unsupervised settings, we want the states to go back and check who you are. We're not paying fraudsters for dishonest endeavors that hurt the American people.
So Dr. Oz outlining the cleanup, suspensions, a moratorium, and a fraud war room. The feds showing the receipts, the Justice Department rolling out the seizures, the charges, and brand new FBI most wanted fraudsters. Today we're announcing unprecedented federal-state cooperation in Ohio, fight against fraud, including partnership and data sharing agreement to enhance its detention and prosecution of fraud. Federal and state charge against 9 defendants for alleged participation in $42 million in fraud. Orders of detention this week for 3 defendants, with 2 additional defendants pending extradition in connection with additional $15 million. The creation of the FBI's most wanted fraudsters list. By holding these fraudsters accountable and partnering with the FBI in a robust most wanted fraudster list, we're pursuing fraud more aggressively than ever. No fraud scheme is beyond our reach. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. So, look at that. Southern District of Ohio Fraud Task Force. $470,000 and 14 luxury cars seized. So it looks like we got a McLaren, we got a couple of nice Mercedes. So what is the car of choice here for these fraudsters? What is that? Is that the Ford Bronco? No, that's the Hummer. Oh, look, we got a nice, it looks like a Bentley. Is it the Bentley? Oh, the Bentley SUV. How nice. Oh, and this is, what is that, the Jaguar? You got a Land Rover. Oh, look at that nice Mercedes convertible. What do we got here? Oh, it looks like a Maserati Levante. Oh, but, oh, they didn't spring for the Modena or the Trofeo version? Come on, guys. Come on. You're fraudsters. Go with the higher trim. Not sure exactly what that is. Is it a Mercedes? Maybe it's a Mercedes. Oh, a nice BMW. Another Mercedes. The McLaren, nah. You know, I don't know. McLaren's never did it for me. You know, I'm more of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini guy. I just never got into the McLaren. I just always felt they were trying too hard. And yes, another Mercedes. And looks like, is that a BMW or is that a Maybach? Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah, I do love my cars. And looks like the fraudsters do too. But just want to point out too that the Attorney General Todd Blanche, no longer just the acting Attorney General, he has now officially been nominated by President Trump to fill the shoes of Pam Bondi officially. And I mean, we could already see the difference between Pam Bondi and Blanche. I mean, the action that we have seen, the arrests, the investigations, everything since Blanche has been put into that position, just action after action after action. So lots of good stuff happening from the Attorney General's office under Todd Blanche. So I'm proud to see President Trump sees the results and he is going to make them permanent. So let's just talk about this. See, this is phase 3. First came prosecutions, then came audits. Now the Trump administration is building permanent anti-fraud architecture. Federal state data sharing agreements, a Medicaid fraud war room in Ohio, high-risk provider tracking, provider moratoriums, a new FBI most wanted fraudsters list, detentions, extraditions, a coordinated task force enforcement. See, it tells you the administration is no longer just seeing fraud as a side issue for the bean counters. It sees fraud as organized theft against the American people and a direct threat to the integrity of government programs. Ohio is starting to look like the pilot program, and if this model works there, do not be surprised when it spreads all across the country, because we do know that there is a 50-state task force currently looking into every single state. Yes, it's not just Ohio. Minnesota, California, Illinois, they're all on the list. Michigan. So it is spreading across the country. See, that's the real victory. Not just punishing yesterday's criminals, but making tomorrow's fraud much harder to pull off. And look, let's be honest about what we're watching here. This is what America First government looks like. President Trump, he promised accountability, and now his administration is delivering it with force. While the previous administration let waste, loopholes, and corruption metastasize, the Trump team is putting the fraudsters on notice. Steal from taxpayers, steal from Medicaid, steal from vulnerable Americans, steal from children, and you'll be hunted, exposed, charged, and stripped of the luxury toys that you bought with stolen money. No, that's not cruelty. That is justice. That is government finally choosing the innocent over the corrupt. So the big question now, it's rather simple. Should the Ohio model go nationwide immediately? Yes or no? I want your answer in the comments, and if you want more reporting the corporate media will never give you straight, share this video, subscribe, and turn on your notifications, because the story is not ending in Ohio. It may just be the blueprint for one of the defining domestic wins of the Trump administration. And if you want some real wins, then text the words raw feed to the number on the screen, 844-840-4963. That's how we win against the algorithmic suppression. Oh, you know it's happening. I know it's happening. I read the comments. You guys are like, hey, I never got a notification. What happened? Gary, wow, I'm surprised you're here. What? You never show up in my feed anymore. I hear you. I see you. And that is why I set this number up just for you. I want to make sure we stay connected. And that's exactly why you have to text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. And that's why I also want you to celebrate America 250 with me. With so much winning going on, let's celebrate. Check out the Next News merch shelf right below this video. Or check that link, shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Find something you like, and let's celebrate all these wins together. All right, folks, so much winning. So much winning going on. Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful time to be in America. And I mean, who can ever forget that dark cloud that just hung over all of us for those 4 years as Joe Biden shuffled from stage to stage like a puppet on strings? After that horrifying theft of our election, being told that you couldn't even talk about it, you couldn't even publish content about it. We are living in a completely new era. President Trump said that we might get tired of winning. I don't know about you, but I certainly am not. And that's why this next report is so important. Because winning starts at home. It starts at the nation's capital. And I know we've been covering a lot of the beautification of Washington, D.C. as of late, but there's a very important reason. Because we have to remember what national pride is. Do you remember during the Summer of Love, the George Floyd riots? Do you remember when they were tearing statues down? Not just in front of schools, but from even inside the halls of chambers in New York. Destroying our history, piece by piece. That's what communists do. They tear down your history and then they rebuild in their image. Well, President Trump is not doing that. He's not allowing that to happen. He's rebuilding in the American image. He's cleaning it up. And that's why we have to just continue to remember what American pride means. When we put our hand over our heart, when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, when we hear the Star-Spangled Banner, do you get choked up? Do you get choked up at a ball game when you hear that? Looking around you, tens of thousands of Americans all standing, and those notes fill the stadium. You know the feeling. I know you do. Because it happens to me every single time. And that's why this next report is just so important. Because what President Trump revealed in the Oval Office today is just one piece of that puzzle of restoring American greatness. What if I told you the water pouring back into the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool it's not the real headline today? Yes, the images are beautiful. Yes, the pumps are on. Yes, President Trump can now point to a restored national landmark and say, look, we fixed it. But it's bigger than a pool. This is the first completed proof of concept for the Trump administration's argument that decline was a choice and that renewal is a decision. You see, the left, they mocked that vision. The bureaucracy dragged its feet, and now the after image is here. The question is, what happens when Americans see undeniable proof with their own eyes? You see, for months, most people only saw pieces of the story. Construction barriers, crews on site, repairs underway, coatings, cleanup, restoration work that the average viewer would never memorize. And that's exactly why today matters. See, voters do not remember engineering reports. They remember the before and they remember the after. Under the Trump administration, the reflecting pool has now crossed from promise to proof. And that matters because this is not just about water. It's about whether America's capital has to stay dirty, neglected, graffitied, decayed, and embarrassing, or whether strong leadership can bring back order, beauty, and pride. See, President Trump's been making the case that if you restore monuments, parks, stations, and civic spaces, you restore confidence in the country itself. The Biden years, they trained Americans to tolerate the decline. But Trump's making the opposite case. Fix it, clean it, rebuild it, and let the country see the result. This pool is the first major America 250 showpiece to move into the finished column. And that idea, seeing what's valuable before everybody else does, is exactly why today's sponsor fits this moment. Now, if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? And of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? See, the people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today, a very similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. Silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and more. To learn why so many Americans are paying attention, simply go to nextnewsgold.com. You can also see how to qualify for a 1/10 ounce gold coin while you are there. Or you can simply call that number on the screen. They're waiting to hear from you. Now back to the moment the water returned and the symbolism got impossible to ignore. And this is the part the corporate media still does not want to admit. This project became a meme before it became a finished restoration. Think about that. Most government maintenance work is invisible and boring. This was different. People joked about hidden images, giant logos, surprise art at the bottom of the pool. Why? Because the public understood this was not just upkeep. It was a statement. The Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool turned into a test case for whether America can look proud, clean, and intentional again. And once the memes start, you know the country's watching. So here's President Trump in the Oval Office just a few hours ago discussing what is going on with the reflecting pool.
This is now open. And that you see the size of that compared to some of the biggest buildings in the country. Actually, the biggest, hey, Peter?
Hey, President Trump.
And we have it finished. The water is pouring in as we speak. And maybe we'll show that what it looks like, because I'm sure the fake news will be thrilled. Take a look. This is from just a little while ago. Nice clean water. So we're here to talk about clean, beautiful coal. That's clean, beautiful water. That's the longest pool anywhere in the world. And here you can tell they're not progressive, because this is not a progressive, because progressives never wear or show an American flag. These are proud people from Oklahoma. They came from Oklahoma, a company from Oklahoma, to do it. But you notice the American flag, he's proudly showing off his work. You know he's not a liberal and or a progressive. Used to be liberal, but they changed their name somewhere along the way because liberal wasn't working, but progressive doesn't work too. Well, the progressive is a beautiful term. They are not progressive. They're degressive. You got that? What do you think? Huh? Daniel's great. He's a great guy. He's a great reporter. And again, we have a picture of a gentleman in a cart. Proudly, this is the head of construction for the job. So you can see it's just finished. This is just minutes before. And there's a gentleman named Secretary Burgum from Interior, Doug, who's been doing an incredible job. So Doug, we have 22 waterfalls. Most of them haven't worked for over 50 years. As of this morning, they all work beautifully, and they're clean. The graffiti's gone. The broken marble is fixed. Well, there's a way of fixing it. You use a thing called silicone and you fix them. And they look beautiful. All of the hate and everything is removed from them. Some of them done through stupidity, actually, but hate. But here's another picture. Now you can tell this is a proud American because he's got a flag. Protesters never have, the bad protesters never have flags up. They somehow don't like the flag too much. But we do. So that's great.
President Trump, clearly proud, says the job is finished, the water is going in, and here's the ground level proof. Crews on the site at the reflecting pool as the refill gets underway. ABC 7 Chicago posting this.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I just set up a live.
So you can see the crews there, the American flag flying proudly as President Trump showed us in the Oval Office. Active work underway, and the water is filling up again as the restoration of our nation's capital continues. So the work zone and the crew is moving. Emily Miller shows the payoff up close. The water actually starting to flow into the pool.
The water is flowing at the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool. It's so exciting. I'll show you.
You're closing out. Marcus is standing beside it. About 300, 400 feet up.
In the middle of the side, I'm not sure where to look. Oh!
Right over these white vans.
Okay.
See Marcus standing there in the green t-shirt?
Now I do.
Coming out of his feet, at his feet.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
It all comes out in one spot. I
This is
didn't
so
realize
cool.
that.
I didn't either. Yeah.
All comes out like that.
Woohoo! Let the river flow.
Wow. So that's the moment the refill begins because the internet never sleeps. The next clip shows conservatives having some fun. The usual anti-Trump crowd melting down. So many possibilities for the bottom of the reflecting pool. Who will ever forget that face? I wonder if anyone's ever identified her. Probably in an insane asylum by now. So the memes are showing the work. Washington Examiner has the pump turning on and the refill happening in plain view. More from that. Beautiful moment as the reflecting pool begins to fill up. You know, when I was there, it was disgusting. And I can't wait to return to see it again. So it wasn't talk, the water's coming back up. Eric Doherty highlights the crew that Trump praised as the warriors, and the pool is reflecting again. President Trump officially goes to D.C. beauty mode. Lincoln Memorial Pool doing its job, reflecting again. The water is filling. Trump, our great warriors fixed and rebuilt the reflecting pool. The left said it was impossible. But it's happening. So the rebuild, the reflections returning. Now the focus shifts to another D.C. cleanup job. Trump says Obama and Biden let rot the Columbus fountain. President Trump dropping another gem. Posting this. Fountain dedicated more than 100 years ago in 1920. 2012. After it stopped working in 2007, Obama and Biden let the fountain fall further into decay. Significant work required to get the fountain functional. First photo below is what the Columbus fountain looked like after it was vandalized under Biden. The other pictures show what it looks like now under Trump. See right there. Before and after. Look at the Hamas graffiti. And now it is beautiful and pristine and white. The left hates this because they want filth, but Trump's message on the fountain is simple. Under the swamp decay, under his watch restoration. And the next image drives home the marble standard he's talking about with a striking visual. President Trump making D.C. stunning again. So, what does it all mean? It means the Trump administration now has a physical, highly visible example of its national renewal message that cannot be dismissed as theory. The water that's flowing into the reflecting pool is not a visual payoff. It's not a memo. It's not a press release. Not a consultant's promise. A completed result. Americans can look at the before and look at the after. That's powerful. It also means every other restoration project now carries even more weight because the administration can say, we did it here, we can do it again. And this is why the left gets so uncomfortable with visible success. Clean monuments, restored fountains, repaired public spaces, and functioning landmarks make decline look optional. And if decline was optional, then the failures of the previous administration were not inevitable. They were chosen. And that's why the story matters more than a simple pool. This is the opening chapter of a broader America 250 visual revival. And President Trump now has something every leader wants: proof. The reflecting pool is no longer a work zone. It is now an argument. An argument that the capital of the United States does not have to look run down. An argument that beauty, order, and national pride can be restored. An argument that America does not have to accept decay as normal. And once the voters see one win, they start expecting more. And that is how momentum builds. That is how confidence returns. And that is how the Trump administration turns restoration into a governing message that the whole country can understand in one glance. If you agree America should restore every monument, every park, and every public space that the left allowed to decline, let Antifa tear down, hit the share button right now. Subscribe to the channel. Drop your answer below. Should President Trump keep pushing this restoration agenda? Yes or no? And there's one more thing I want you to restore. I want you to restore the notifications that never arrive. And how can you do that? Well, thousands of patriots have already discovered this. All you have to do is text the words raw feed to that number on the screen, 844-840-4963. That's how we restore the truth, getting directly to you by cutting out the middleman, by cutting out big tech who thinks that you don't deserve to know the truth. But you do. And that's why I set this up just for you. So make sure you join the thousands of patriots who've already made that decision. And let's celebrate America 250, shall we? Check out the merch shelf just below this video. Find something that stands out and resonates with you. Or just visit shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Either way, let's celebrate America 250 together. All right, America 250 is happening, friends. But we have to talk about what isn't happening in California. I'm talking about fair elections. President Trump made that abundantly clear today in the Oval Office. So many questions. The left's favorite playbook is at it again. So we're going to get into that and bring you the latest from the Oval Office, from what the president had to say. with respect to California and some of the other reaction that's happening now. Tonight, the fight over California's vote count just exploded into something much bigger than a race or a county or one news cycle. President Trump, speaking straight from the Oval Office, says Democrats are cheating in California and that the numbers are moving fast as more mail-in ballots just suddenly appear. Then NBC News goes on television and practically tells the country that the ballots are still arriving after Election Day. They could rescue the Democrats in Los Angeles. Americans are watching this happen in real time and asking a very simple question. If Election Day is over, why does the counting drama feel like it's just beginning? And this is why this story matters so much. See, the crisis here is not only about fraud allegations. Conservatives have every reason to demand scrutiny. The deeper crisis is trust. Most Americans still believe elections should work in a basic common sense order. Votes are cast, ballots are counted, results are known. But in California, the system now stretches that process out with universal mail-in ballots. Roughly 1,700 drop boxes, signature reviews, and ballots arriving after Election Day. Now, that may be legal under state rules, but legality and legitimacy are not the same thing in the public mind. Every time a race tightens, days later, every time analysts explain that late ballots lean Democrat, millions of citizens hear the same message. Wait longer and Democrats gain ground. That is a recipe for public disbelief. And when trust in the counting process starts collapsing, the damage spreads far beyond California. It reaches the country, the courts, and the future of election confidence itself. And while we're talking about systems that either strengthen confidence or break it down, let me tell you about something that actually delivered real results right in my own home. Now, you've probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan talking with Mel Gibson, talking about people close to them who went through serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan mentions red light-based therapies, working at the cellular level. Gibson says that plainly the stuff works, and that got my attention because in my own life I watched something very similar with my wife, dealing with constant discomfort and anxiety for far too long, and finding something that actually helped, it mattered. That's why I want to tell you about red light therapy from Jonathan Otto. I've interviewed him countless times. You can check out the archive of our discussions, but if you've been curious, check those out or just go to myredlight.com and take a look at the options available. It's a simple tool that people are using to support recovery, relaxation, and wellness at home. Use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Now back to the California mess, because the more that the details come out, the harder it becomes for the political class to pretend the voters are crazy for asking questions. See, here's the part that they don't want you focusing on. This argument is no longer just about one candidate hanging on or falling behind. It's about a system designed to keep counting and shifting after the public thinks the election is over. We're talking about ballots flown in by helicopter across a county of more than 4,700 miles to a single processing center with millions of ballots moving through one hub. Even if officials say that's sufficient, you can see why ordinary Americans look at that setup and say, this is exactly how confidence gets wrecked. President Trump, straight from the Oval Office, says Democrats are cheating in California and stealing the election.
Just don't want cheating in our elections. And you see it happening in California. Those numbers are coming down rapidly. They found a lot of mail-in ballots last night, shockingly. So we don't want that. Then we added best of. This is best of Trump. No men in women's sports. No transgender mutilization surgery for our children. I would say that's pretty close to 99-1 also.
Of course, he's referring to the Save America Act, which is still languishing in the Senate thanks to John Thune. But he says it right there. Cheating is out in the open. Now, NBC practically admits the late mail-in ballots in L.A. are expected to break for Democrats days after Election Day. Libs at TikTok says NBC says the quiet part out loud. LA won't have results because tons of mail-in ballots will be arriving over the next few days, which will help the Democrats because that's how they cheat.
Remember, the final piece of the puzzle that we won't know tonight, right, is the late arriving vote by mail. And we're talking about probably like a third of the vote in Los Angeles. We're probably not going to be getting until tomorrow and maybe days to come after tomorrow. The mail can still come in after Election Day. And there's indications, and there's certainly a ton of precedent here, that late arriving vote by mail is going to be significantly more Democratic friendly than all of the other vote, meaning that would be good news for Bass. Right. That would be good news for Rahman. If she's going to come out of tonight behind Pratt, it's a huge if, but if she's going to come out of tonight behind Pratt, well, it's not a huge if at this point, she would then have the opportunity, if she's close enough, to catch him with that. But that is a 25,000 vote pad there. 8 percentage points that Pratt has managed to build.
Makes me so sick. So the media is already conditioning the viewers for usual late-night ballot swings. Next, Wall Street Apes points to Adam Schiff's race. Remember that? It says California's seen this movie before. Widespread reports of California changing the amount of mail-in ballots coming in percentages. Remember, this exact same thing happened to favor Adam Schiff. We all watched California Democrat flip votes for him in real time. Remember this? Hey, wait a minute. Oh, wow, look at that. Massive swing. Pencil neck Adam Schiff just pulls ahead last minute. But that example is why the outrage keeps building. Now Eric Doherty shows how California's law itself stacks the deck with 1,700 drop boxes, universal mail ballots, and huge chunks of the vote uncounted. Mass calls are erupting for the Supreme Court to step in and end the madness. California is undergoing another mail-in ballot scandal because it's built into their laws. Nearly 2,000 drop boxes statewide, and Democrats let ballots come in super late. Plenty of time for fraud. The votes remaining went up.
What Hilton is talking about is the way California has changed its election laws as of today, right? You got 58 counties, you got 1,700 drop boxes, you got 23 million registered voters, and everyone gets a mail ballot as of 2021. And that's the way they've been doing it in California. Now you got to match the signatures, and all this takes an extraordinary amount of time. Nonetheless, 56% of the vote is still out. That dropped a little bit from yesterday. We'll explain that in a moment here. Hilton in the lead, Becerra second, and Tom Steyer third. It's my sense that all three of them moved up slightly overnight, maybe about two tenths of a point for all three of them. Meanwhile, in the mayor's race, here's where we stand. Karen Bass has advanced. You've got almost 40% of the outstanding votes still out there. And Pratt is in second place, holding his own. Nithya Raman now is in third place. Some of our analysis from overnight of the late vote that's coming in tends toward the Democrat. So that would favor Raman and would hurt Pratt if that trend were to continue. But where does it go? Carl Rove is with me now to talk about this. Carl, you have two rules, right?
So, if the system sounds chaotic, next video makes it worse. Wall Street Apes shows LA County using helicopters to haul ballots into one central processing hub. LA County Sheriff's Department used helicopters to fly in ballots from vote centers across the region. The reason they're doing this is because LA is huge, over 4,700 miles long. There are 5.8 million registered voters in a single ballot processing center in the City of Industry. All ballots from vote centers across the vast county are brought here for counting after polls close. Driving from one remote area, like Antelope Valley, Lancaster, Palmdale, takes hours, so helicopters get ballots in faster, reducing delays in reporting and minimizing time ballots sit in transit. While I find it interesting, this seems like the perfect opportunity to introduce as many mail-in ballots as needed without any questions. This also uses one processing center. This means they wouldn't have to coordinate rigging elections across multiple offices if it could easily be one controlled operation at one facility. We need a federal audit of California elections. If there's no fraud, great. But I think we all know that there is massive fraud.
The LA County Sheriff's Department is flying in ballots from vote centers across the region. You can see the choppers landing right now. We're standing in the parking lot of the LA County Registrar's Ballot Processing Center. They land right here in the middle, and then you see workers, they're standing by to pick up those ballots and take them inside. They're picking up ballots from 8 cities, including Lancaster, Santa Clarita, Palmdale, Lakewood, Santa Monica, Van Nuys, Pomona, and Torrance. Once they arrive, the ballots are securely transferred inside, where election workers are receiving and processing millions of ballots. While most ballots are transported by vehicle, election officials use helicopters to bring in ballots from some of the county's farthest vote centers.
So, Trump Daily Post making note that it's time for the Supreme Court to step up. They need to abolish election month once and for all and mandate a single election day nationwide. No more mail-in ballots trickling days after election day.
Justices are wrestling with a question about whether states can count ballots received after Election Day in a case that could have an impact in nearly 30 states that allow some kind of grace period. The RNC is challenging a Mississippi law that allows ballots to be counted up to 5 business days after Election Day if they're postmarked by Election Day. Justice Alito was among the biggest skeptics during Monday's arguments.
Independence Day, birthday, and election day, and they're all particular days. So if we start with that, if I have nothing more to look at than the phrase election day, I think this is the day in which everything is going to take place.
But Justice Kagan questioned the impact of that logic on practices like early voting.
It seems to me it's a rule that prevents early voting, because you're basically saying there are 2 things that have to happen, and they have to happen on election day.
Meaning the casting of the vote and the receipt of that vote. But attorney Paul Clement, representing the RNC, said the argument is that the process be consummated or completed by Election Day. A number of the justices also raised the issue of the potential for the appearance of fraud when votes arrive and are counted after Election Day. And there wind up being shifts in vote totals and how that may impact public confidence.
Yeah, public confidence. That's why we need the Save America Act in place. So what does it all really mean? It means that America is heading towards a direct showdown over what Election Day is supposed to be. President Trump's doing what leaders are supposed to do, saying out loud what millions of Americans already see. If voting can keep arriving, votes keep arriving, margins can keep changing, and networks can calmly explain that the later ballots are better for Democrats, then the system is begging for distrust. And that is why the Supreme Court fight matters. No longer just an argument over procedure, it's a battle between 2 visions. One nation, one clear election day, or a sprawling election month where confidence bleeds out a little more every cycle. California is a symbol, but the warning is national. And the bottom line is simple. Republicans, conservatives, every American who cares about fair elections should stop letting the media gaslight the public on this. People are not wrong to be alarmed when results drag on for days, when the remaining vote total seems to move, and when every explanation somehow ends with Democrats benefiting. The Trump administration has made election integrity a national priority, and this story shows exactly why that fight matters. Confidence is not a side issue. Confidence is the foundation. If voters stop believing the count is clean, the whole system starts cracking. So yes, California may allow this under its laws, but the real question is whether the country should keep tolerating a model that shreds trust every single time. If you agree that election day should mean election day, share this report. Subscribe to the Next News Network and drop your answer below. Should the Supreme Court step in and end ballot counting after Election Day? Yes or no? Let's have a conversation. And let's continue this conversation when you text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. That's how we can connect with you. We cut out the middleman. We bypass the algorithm. When the notifications never arrive from YouTube, I will send them directly from me right to your phone. We don't need big tech to decide for you. We already know what you want. So just text those words. And let's stay connected like the thousands of patriots who've already done so. And it's time to celebrate. So many wins. America 250 right around the corner. And that's why we got some new gear just for you to celebrate with us. Check out the merch shelf below this video. Let's celebrate America 250 together. So that is a wrap tonight, guys. We have run through quite a few stories. Started with our White House rundown, the big coal victory. President Trump is using the Defense Production Act to accelerate beautiful, clean coal, as he likes to call it. And of course, the latest in the reckoning with Barack Obama and that flesh-eating fly that's plaguing Texas cattle. The administration's on top of that, getting ahead of it. But of course, the question remains, if Bill Gates doesn't want people eating meat, and suddenly people are getting bit by ticks that make them allergic, what makes you think that he wouldn't release some kind of flesh-eating fly into livestock to accomplish the same goal? Oh, but it's all for climate change, right? Yeah, we got to save the world. Existential threat. And then we gave you the latest on Iran and the deal that is continuing to work behind the scenes, even as the House passes a resolution to try to hamstring President Trump. Largely symbolic, as we told you. It's got to go through the Senate, and it's got to hit President Trump's desk, where he will, of course, veto it. So they can cheer all they want in the House chamber, but we will cheer when peace is achieved. And of course, the big fraud crackdown that's happening in Ohio, just another front on the war that Nick Shirley exposed in Minnesota, expanded to California, Illinois, Michigan, all 50 states. Ohio is the next front in that battle. And of course, the beautification of our great nation continues with the water turning on at the reflecting pool and restoring that national pride. But national pride can only go so far when you're stealing elections, as President Trump clearly just told us from the Oval Office, that what's happening in California is another example of election fraud. That's why we need the Save America Act passed. That's why we need John Thune to get off his ass and get that Save America bill passed. We will lose the republic if we do not have clean, fair elections. That's why the Democrats are fighting it so hard. Because the only way they can win is when they cheat. Because their policies are worthless. They can't win on policy. They can only win when they suddenly have thousands of mail-in ballots show up in the middle of the night. Yes, you and I, we've seen that game before. And we were victims of that game for 4 years under the Biden administration. Thank you for that $4.99, Curio. We appreciate it. Thank you to our super chatters today. Thank you to Salty Nationalist, who gifted 5 memberships to Ocean Breathe Salty, Duba Postmate, Post State, DEFCON President Annie Arison, Jack King, Tom and Bella also dropping $10. Thank you. Winning every day, we're back. Yes, that's right. So that's the show tonight. We'll see you here tomorrow as we wrap up the week, and we look forward to seeing you again in the greatest nation on earth. For the Next News Network,